I was utterly stunned. There they were, my boyfriend and my sister, standing far too close for comfort. It wasn't just the closeness that made my stomach churn, it was the way they were looking at each other. It was more than a conversation. There was something off, something that sent a chill down my spine. My mind was racing, trying to process what I was seeing. My boyfriend, Alex, the guy I had been with for 2 years, someone I had been seriously considering a future with, was standing in the kitchen with my sister, in a way that no one should ever stand with their sibling's boyfriend. And she? My sister, the person I despised for years, had the audacity to look at him as though no lines had been crossed, as though it was perfectly normal for her to be so flirty with him just days before her wedding. I felt my heart pounding in my chest as I watched them. I wanted to shout, to demand answers right then and there, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I stood frozen, watching as my sister's hand casually brushed against Alex's arm. How did it even get to this point? How could she do this to me? To us? They didn't seem to notice me, which only added fuel to the fire of my growing suspicion. I couldn't hear every word they were saying, but I didn't need to. The body language was enough. It was all there, her flirting, his uncomfortable laughter that didn't quite reach his eyes, the tension in his posture. He wasn't as innocent in this as I had hoped, but the real betrayal, the one that sent me spiraling, was the fact that my sister was playing this game with him. My boyfriend. I had always known there was a problem between us, but this was something I couldn't ignore. She had crossed a line, one I could never unsee. How long had this been going on? Was I just blind to it all? And as much as I hated her, I never thought she would be capable of this kind of betrayal. For a moment, I felt my anger surge, rage bubbling up so quickly I thought I might explode. I wanted to confront them right then and there. To yell, to expose everything. But something held me back. Maybe it was the fear of losing everything, of tearing my family apart. Or maybe I was simply in shock, unable to process what I had just witnessed. But my hesitation didn't last long. The moment my sister turned to walk away from the kitchen, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I marched straight in, eyes blazing, heart racing. What the hell do you think you're doing? I demanded, my voice loud and sharp. The two of them jumped, startled. My sister had the nerve to look surprised, as if she hadn't just been making a move on my boyfriend. Alex, on the other hand, was visibly flustered, his face turning a shade of red that matched the fury in my chest. He started, but I didn't let him finish. My sister was the one I was angry with. She was the one who had crossed the line. What are you doing, Melissa? I spat, my voice dripping with contempt. This is a week before your wedding. How could you do this to me? She stood there, her expression a mixture of guilt and annoyance, but it was clear she didn't care as much as she should. It's not what you think, she muttered, but I could see the flicker of something in her eyes, something that told me she wasn't even the slightest bit sorry. I couldn't believe it. I had been through years of rivalry with her, but this felt like a betrayal that couldn't be undone. She had gone too far, and I wasn't about to sit back and pretend nothing had happened. The silence hung in the air like a heavy fog. Alex was still standing there, looking awkward and uncomfortable, but my attention was solely on my sister. How dare she? How could she do this to me? The betrayal stung, sharper than anything I had ever felt before. But in that moment, I knew one thing for sure, this wasn't something I could simply overlook. Not this time. I was furious, but the scene before me was too bizarre to process as just anger. Melissa had cornered Alex, and I could see him pressed against the wall, his back almost plastered to it. It was like he was trying to put as much space between himself and her as physically possible. Meanwhile, Melissa was flirting with him, telling him that if he ever grew tired of me, he knew exactly who to call. The audacity! My stomach churned with disgust and fury. I didn't think, I just stormed into the room, pushing the door open with a force that surprised even me, and stood there, arms crossed, glaring at her. I dared her to speak, to say another word. But all she did was smile smugly, as though nothing had happened, and walked right past me without so much as a glance. I knew she knew I had overheard it all. But she acted as though she was untouchable. Once she was gone, Alex came to me. He tried to explain, but there was no need. I could see it in his eyes, in the way he was shifting uncomfortably. He didn't need to convince me that nothing had happened between them. I knew him better than that. He told me he had only gone to the kitchen to get a bottle of water when Melissa followed him in and shut the door behind her. She blocked the exit, cornered him, and then started making a move. The worst part? This wasn't the first time this had happened. Melissa had tried this before, tried to make a move on Alex multiple times. And sometimes, it worked. I couldn't even count how many friends had cheated on me with her, and my parents, my own parents, knew about it. They knew everything, yet they still pushed us to stay together. Every time I threatened to cut ties, they'd pull out the emotional manipulation, telling me I couldn't walk away from family. I didn't want to cut ties with them. Despite everything with my sister, they were good to me. They weren't perfect, but they tried. My sister wasn't the golden child by any means. She received her share of criticism from our parents too. But I couldn't blame them entirely. This was just Melissa, being herself, being terrible. They couldn't control that. They were doing their best to make the family work. But after last week, after what I had just witnessed, I knew I'd had enough. I was done. Even now, with everything between Alex and me, Melissa couldn't keep her hands to herself. And if she thought she could still come after me, still try to sabotage my life, she was going to pay for it. I knew this wasn't just about her and Alex. It was about her and me, her insane need to always outdo me, to undermine everything I had. I wasn't going to let her win anymore. I needed to tell someone, to make this known. So, I went straight to my mother. She was the first person I ran into after Alex told me what had happened. I pulled her aside and explained everything that had been going on with Melissa. I told her about the rumors from my friends, how Melissa had been pretending to be single and going out with other people, cheating on Fu right after their engagement. My mother was shocked, and I expected her to support me, to help me do the right thing. But instead, she begged me to let it go. She told me to keep quiet, to forget everything, and to put on a happy face for the wedding. Whatever happened after that, she said, we would deal with it later. I couldn't believe it. My mother, who I thought would always support me, was telling me to stay silent. To let Melissa marry Fu despite everything. I thought my parents would be the ones to help me stop this madness. But no. They wanted me to pretend. To ignore what was happening right in front of me. And after that conversation, I gave up all hope. Hope that we could ever be a normal family. Hope that my parents would ever protect me from the mess Melissa had created. When Alex and I got home that day, I was crushed, frustrated. For so long, I believed my parents would eventually do the right thing. But now it was clear. No matter what, they'd always put Melissa first. Then came the twist. A few minutes after we got home, Alex told me something that lifted my spirits for the first time that day. We had a chance to fix this ourselves. If my mother wasn't going to help, we could take matters into our own hands. Alex had accidentally recorded a video. He'd been fiddling with his phone in the kitchen, and somehow, when Melissa entered the room, the screen hadn't turned off. As he tried to put his phone away, it started recording. And there it was. Video proof of Melissa trying to make a move on Alex, just days before the wedding. I knew exactly what I had to do. Without hesitation, I typed out everything I knew, the rumors, the lies, the cheating. Everything. I attached the video to the email and sent it straight to Fu. I wasn't sure what I expected to happen after sending that email, but I sure as hell didn't expect what happened next. The following morning, when Alex and I woke up, we checked our phones, eagerly waiting for any response. Surely there would be messages, at least from Melissa or my parents, right? But no! Our inboxes were completely empty. Nothing. The silence was deafening. We waited, holding on to hope that something would happen. Hours stretched on, and still, no one had reached out to us. We were starting to wonder if anything would ever change. Even as the day wore on, everything around us stayed eerily normal. My mother called me, and we spoke as though nothing had ever occurred. The world felt like it was moving on, leaving us behind. Alex and I, still waiting for a sign, came to a quiet conclusion. Maybe Fu had read the email, seen the video, and simply decided to stay with Melissa. Maybe all our efforts had been for nothing. It stung, but we couldn't ignore the reality. We thought we might be able to bring her down, expose the truth, and somehow take him back for him. But it hadn't worked out that way, not yet, anyway. At least, that's what we believed. A week passed. Yesterday, the wedding. It was like nothing had happened, like we had imagined it all. We couldn't even understand how this was possible, especially after everything that had gone down with that video. The ceremony seemed to be unfolding with all the usual cheer and excitement, but we were left utterly confused. Alex and I exchanged glances, questioning everything. The rehearsal dinner had been unremarkable. Melissa and Fu seemed happy. Nothing about him had changed, not his mood, his demeanor, or his behavior. Even when he greeted us, it was as if he had forgotten the turmoil, the doubts we had tried to bring to his attention. For a fleeting moment, I wondered if he had even read the email at all. But the universe had its own way of unfolding things. And I had no intention of being the one to force the truth on him. The thought of pushing him away from Melissa seemed pointless. After the email, I had resigned myself to the idea that maybe he was better off not knowing. But then, as the vows were spoken, everything shifted. There, in the middle of the altar, something unexpected happened. After Melissa had pledged her vows, it was Fu's turn. But instead of vows, he spoke of something completely different, something we had no idea was coming. He talked about an email. The one that had been sent to him a week ago. It hit me like a thunderbolt. Alex and I locked eyes. It was happening. But even though we knew, we couldn't prepare for what would come next. It wasn't relief or joy that filled us, it was confusion, a sense of bewilderment that we couldn't shake. Was this really happening? Was he really doing this now? The moment Fu began reading the contents of the email, I felt the room freeze. He even played the video over the mic. The voices echoed, mine, Alex's, filling the space around us. The air was thick with tension. All eyes were on us. We could feel every gaze burning through us, every whisper following the playback. It was beyond awkward, it was surreal. Then, Fu spoke again. He had spent a week reflecting on what he had seen. He hadn't told anyone, but now he was ready to speak his truth. He thought about it, discussed it with others, and what he had learned was far more than he had bargained for. The rumors in the email? They weren't just rumors. They were true. He even mentioned a few men from Melissa's past. Guys she dated during their years together, and they confirmed it all with photos. It was as if the world around me collapsed in that moment. There was no doubt left. Fu had seen everything, and now he was leaving her. He didn't need to say another word. No vows. No love. Just a clear and painful decision to walk away. He had chosen this moment, standing at the altar, to free himself. To claim something for himself after everything he had endured. It was his moment of satisfaction, his revenge, and it felt like justice. He stepped away for a brief second, and in that silence, the weight of the words lingered. And then, the chaos began. Melissa's reaction was instant, raw panic, spiraling into hysteria. The crowd watched, stunned, unsure of what to do next. Time stretched on, and no one knew how to move forward. Should the wedding continue? Was there even a wedding left? Her family was forced to step in, taking the microphone to announce that guests should go home after lunch. Some stayed for the meal, some left immediately. But for Alex and me, we didn't want to be part of the aftermath. We left, numb with disbelief. I felt a strange relief in my chest. Fu had made the right choice. He deserved so much better, better than a woman who had been playing games with his heart. Better than someone who had kept him around as an option. He deserved real love. By the time we got home, the weight of it all began to settle in. The phone call came late, just like I expected. My mother, full of judgment and accusations, unleashed her words. She said she knew I had been behind the email, that I was a vindictive person, someone driven by jealousy. She accused me of ruining Melissa's wedding just because she was getting married before me. She said I had crossed a line, and the disappointment in her voice stung. She compared me to my sister, accusing me of always trying to outdo her, just like she had tried to outdo me. The harsh words were like daggers. And as she told me that we shouldn't keep in touch for a while, I felt my heart break. I replayed that conversation over and over, desperately searching for the right words, but none came. My emotions were raw, but I couldn't explain myself. The hurt lingered, and I started wondering if maybe I was the one in the wrong. Alex reassured me that I wasn't, but how could I truly know? And now, as I reflect on everything that happened, I just want answers. Was I wrong for exposing my sister's lies? Was I really the villain here? The guilt is overwhelming, but deep down, I believe I did the right thing. I always believed that standing up for what was right mattered more than worrying about someone's feelings. And looking back, it's clear I saved everyone a lot of heartache. If Fu had gone ahead and married her, it would have all ended in a painful divorce, far worse than anything that happened. I spared us all from that mess. As for my parents, if they want to take her side, they're free to do so. But I've blocked them now. They know where to find me if they ever want to reach out. As for Melissa, I couldn't care less about her feelings. She's never cared about anyone else's, so I don't owe her that courtesy. Honestly, I'm glad she's miserable. Maybe if she had been a better partner to Fu, things wouldn't have turned out this way. Now, I need to address some things. I saw comments from people accusing me of having feelings for Fu, claiming that I was sabotaging his relationship because of that. To those people, let me make it clear, my actions had nothing to do with romantic feelings for him. It was never about hate for my sister either. No, I did what I thought was right. I've known Fu for years, and I've never been that close to him. I did everything because I genuinely cared about his well-being, not out of any personal feelings. And let's set the record straight, I'm in a relationship with Alex. We've been together for 2 years now, and I love him more than anyone or anything else. I'm planning to marry him, and that's made crystal clear in my original post. So, where this theory of me having feelings for Fu even came from, I'll never understand. It's insulting. But whatever. I know my intentions, and I know my actions were for the best. If anyone still wants to believe that I did this because of Fu, let them. I can live with that. The truth is, I did what I did because it felt like the right thing to do. I've endured too much for too long to keep tolerating it. No regrets. Most of the comments have been supportive anyway, and I don't feel the need to explain myself further. Alex and I are happy, and that's what matters. My parents? They haven't spoken to me since, but honestly, it doesn't bother me. They've shown me who they really are. They'll always choose Melissa's side, even when she's clearly in the wrong. She's a serial cheater, and they still defend her. It's baffling. But whatever. I don't have to try to fix things with them anymore. They've made it clear I'm not that important to them, and neither is doing the right thing. It's a free world, and we all make our own choices. And right now, I'm making mine. 2 weeks after everything unfolded, I got an unexpected update. Fu finally reached out to me. To be honest, I didn't think I'd ever hear from him. I had been the one to cause the wedding to fall apart, after all. It's not like we were close before, and I didn't expect him to thank me. But, out of nowhere, I got an email from him. He apologized for not reaching out sooner, saying he'd been processing everything. He admitted that, though he had doubts about Melissa, he never truly believed what people were saying about her. No one had the courage to step up and give him the full picture. But I did. I told him the truth, so he could make his own decisions. He thanked me for that. He also said he didn't care to know my motives. The reasons behind my actions didn't matter to him now. He just wanted to express his gratitude, and that was it. It was a simple thank you, but it meant a lot. Despite everything, I still felt a little bad for him. I knew he loved Melissa. But Alex and I agreed it was better for him in the long run. Hopefully, he finds happiness in the end. Then came the next chapter. 3 months after I last posted here, there's finally some big news. Alex proposed. After all the chaos, the ups and downs, he asked me to marry him. And I said yes. We're getting married, and we're even throwing an engagement party in a few days. My parents? I didn't invite them. They've shown they don't care enough to reach out, and that's fine. Our relationship with them is over. I posted about my engagement on social media, but they didn't even bother to congratulate me. Thankfully, my relatives did, and most people believe I did the right thing all along. My parents, on the other hand, have made it clear they're on the wrong side of this. But honestly, I don't need anything from them anymore. Alex and I are happy, and that's all that matters now.